Alright, what's going on, guys? So, obviously, we're in a bit of a different setting here. This is all going to be a part of which marker should you buy if you're trying to get into the sport, or for those of you moving into MagFed from some other part of the sport and you're unsure where to start but you want to get into it. That's what we're going to be talking about today. All of this is from our experience as a group, markers I personally owned, things like that. So none of this is concrete. Take it, it's all just suggestion. But it's information that's good to know because some of it's not super easy to find, and especially not in a condensed space. So before we get started, just know that all of these markers, other than the one I'm going to talk about at the very beginning, shoot first strike. They disassemble pretty much with, let's just say, one bolt out the back, and you could pull the whole thing out and clean it for the most part. So whether you want first strike or ease of maintenance, all three of the main ones that I'm going to talk about all have that feature. They all have a air through stock option if that's what you want to do. So I guess let's just get started with the first one I think anybody should buy if they're on the fence about whether or not they want to play MagFed. And that's the Tippmann TMC / Stormer, because they're very similar markers. This right here, this is mine, which has been pieced out. Other people have it. We basically all have one of these as a backup of sorts. Something that might look a little more familiar is this right here. So this is the Tippmann TMC. This is the elite version with this stock. This was painted a while back, but it does have an air through stock option. It does take 20 round or 19 round magazines, but this is semi-auto only. It's round ball only, so no first strikes. But the main issue for a lot of people is this here, is it's kind of long in the back compared to a lot of other markers. It does have a charging handle to cock the gun, but all in all, it's the 98 platform. It's going to be reliable. It's something you could just throw in the closet. It's going to work. One thing I will say is these magazines I've had quite a bit of issues with after using them a bunch. It's like the winder starts to get caught up on itself and it'll just stop feeding. You have to wind it a few clicks and then re-release it and it'll be fine. But this is the main reason I moved off of this, but would definitely give you a really good idea of whether or not you actually like playing MagFed for a really low price. So I believe the TMC right now is like $249, don't quote me, and then the MagFed Stormer I believe is around 200. So similar price, basically the same gun, just in a different body. Okay, so the next marker I do not have. Now, I owned one of these like 4 years ago or so, and that's the Valken / Milsig M17 family of platform. I never had any issues with it, but beware, I never used full auto on it, ever. So I can't speak to how reliable or not trustworthy it is, because I never used it. So I'm not going to comment on that. Semi-auto, I never had any issues. The magazines, I never had any issues. Now, those were the old 20-round round ball only curved mags, which you can still get, I think, on MCS's website. So that's always an option for the realism side of things. But the main things you're going to get, it comes in at $300. You're going to get air through stock. You're going to get full auto, mechanical, out of the box. You're going to get first strike capabilities. And then the magazines, you have a handful of options. You can run the straight hybrid mags that they have now. That's first strike and round ball. I believe around 20. Most of these magazines are around 20, and I'll talk about the one that's not. Or if you want the more realism / milsim vibe, you can get the 20 round round ball only. But that is a pro con there is curved is round ball only. So if you want more milsim, you're going to sacrifice some of that first strike capability, or you might not mind the straight mags. That's also an option, and you still get that first strike capability out of it. It is the happy median between price point Realism, Milsim, the whole package. Honestly, if you want to spend a little bit more than the TMC and you don't want to spend quite as much as the other markers we're going to talk about, get an M17. You'd probably be satisfied. You probably would never even need to upgrade. It's also something that breaks down 2 bolts in the back. The whole bolt assembly comes out and you can clean it. So the other thing is customization. It does not take standard AR handguards. It's got a little 3-bolt Milsig Valken system that mounts the handguards on the front, so customization's a little bit harder on that end. It does take AR pistol grips, I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it does, though. And any of the 13 CI stocks obviously are going to fit on that. So you do have a good amount of options. Some might just be a little bit more complicated or difficult to come by. But the M17 is a great option if you're looking to spend a little bit more and you still want a good overall bang for your buck. So the next 2 markers we're going to move into are, I'm going to do them based on price, technically. So we're going to move into the T15. This is the First Strike T15. Now, this is my personal marker that I use right now. And as far as realism, Milsim gets, there's not anything else on the market that's going to come close to the T15. Reason for that is it's 1-to-1 with an AR-15. So it takes AR furniture, handguards, pistol grips, any of the 13 CI bottles will fit, obviously. But it is as real as it gets feel-wise, which is why part of why I use it. I just like the way it feels personally out of all of these the best. These magazines, which I'll touch on this real quick, these are smoke, so they're see-through. You might be able to see that. They are toolless. They're really easy to work with. The only issue is this top plate is known to have some issues. Sometimes you have to kind of pop it off and rebend this front plate back in. But this is round ball, First Strike, all in one. So you're not sacrificing looks or Milsim for function in that regard. Now, the issue with this is baseline, this is $500. Now, this is not what this is at all. It's going to come with a free float stock, similar to this, but not this. It's going to come base everything. Now, you do have the option of full auto, but it is sold separately, and it is a pretty penny. So it's super easy to install, a little bit more finicky to work with, but once you get it in there, honestly, the feeling of shooting a T15 with full auto in it is something I think everybody should do at some point, just because it feels so damn good. Another thing is the variants that you have access to price point wise from First Strikes. You have a handful of different variants, so if you don't want the base $500 one, there's probably a good chance there's going to be one that you do like and do click with more, so there's always that option. One of the other downsides of this that I will touch on real quick, sorry if that was super loud, is its proprietary barrel system. It does not have traditional threads. It's got this weird locking groove, so changing barrels is not as easy as any of these other guns, honestly, or markers, sorry. This is, honestly, I hate it so much, but it's nothing we can do about it. They are making some power tubes and things. Maybe you can get around that in the future, but for right now, this is what we're kind of stuck with. You can get adapters and such to take other barrels if you do have a collection of them, so that's always an option as well. But big disclaimer, these are a labor of love. So if you get a T15, I honestly don't recommend it as your first marker, just because they are problem children. Problem children. They're terrible when it comes to just funky little issues. You're gonna have to get used to taking it apart, tweaking little screws here and there. Honestly, there's not that many of them, so it's pretty easy to get used to. And once you get it in working order, it should stay there for the most part, but especially if you drop a full auto kit in here, expect to go through a trial phase of getting it there. But once it gets there, it's honestly the most fun I've had shooting a marker at all. So take that for what you want. This technically is cheaper baseline than the next one, but the next one is definitely nothing to throw away by any means. This technically is an EMF 100. This is one of the best, if not the best, mag-fed gun on the market right now in most people's opinions. Part of that is because they are incredibly reliable. You could probably throw this in a box like a Tippmann and it's just going to work forever, it seems. We've got at least one person on the team I could think of that practically never cleans his ever and has never had an issue with it. And then you have me with the T15 that has issues a lot. So take that for what you want. Part of why this is more expensive in its current state, even though this is basically a baseline EMF, is that they sell the air through stock separate. So this is another 80 bucks on top of the gun's 500-ish. So give or take which model you get. So technically it's more expensive, similar price, because this is ran through the bottom. You could run it without this and it's going to work just the same, but something to be aware of just in case. Real quick, let me touch on these magazines. So you've got a handful of options for magazines. The one most people are probably using are the die mags, D-mags, die mags, whatever you want to call them. And these are technically 20 rounds, but they are 10 and 10. One of the great things about these, if you buy these, Planet Eclipse sells a follower kit that replaces these. This will actually go into your breech and stop your bolt, making it super quiet when you're out instead of it just being a more hollow sound. But the big thing, I think, is that these springs are incredibly light. I mean, obviously you can't feel it. When I swapped these out, I was amazed at the difference, and because of that, your paint is not going to dimple near as much with this. This is definitely lighter on any paint, really. That's a huge feature, in my opinion. I don't play with one of these, but I know for a fact that a lot of the MGs, EMFs that we have shoot more accurate most of the time, just because the paint that we have access to is terrible. So that's a feature. If you're playing at fields with crap garbage paint, this might be a route for you to go just because of that. The other thing is that it has these little trap doors and the follower locks at the bottom, so they're not under pressure and they're not going anywhere. So these are fantastic if you don't mind the 10 and 10. Planet Eclipse came out with this alternative here. This is 21 or 20 rounds continuous speed. I believe this is, yes, this is first strike and round ball, same as these. The only difference is this has your traditional winder. They're going to be under pressure. The spring's stiffer, but it'll work just the same as any others. If you want 20 round, you have that option. But back to this. The reason I do not play with one of these, two reasons, is milsim. Some people don't mind this. I personally don't much care for the way these look, especially out of the box. We do have a couple builds that look really good, so it's not impossible. But I want a real AR feel, and this is not it. But that being said, that's personal preference, so you might not have any issues with that. You also have the option of splitting this off if you want to run it like this. But the other, I wouldn't even call it a negative, as of right now, and I know there's been some player-made, I think, kits for this. There are no buyable drop-in full auto kits for this. I think people have been modifying some other kits, and it is possible, but it's not like the T15 where you can go online, buy EMF 100 full auto kit right now. They don't exist that I'm aware of. If that changes, please put it in the comments, put a link, something. Because as far as I'm aware, there is no full auto for this. But that being said, I don't think it really needs it because it's so damn accurate. Even out of the box, it's honestly, if you want to spend top dollar, you don't care about milsim, you don't care about that, you want efficiency, reliability, all of that good stuff, this is it right here. You've got magazine options, you've got first strike, you've got round ball. It comes built in with an on-off on the ASA. This thing is just great. So if you're on the fence, you want to spend some more money, I think this would be a fantastic choice if you don't care about those other things. Now, if you want full auto, you want milsim, obviously T15 is probably going to be your best bet if you don't want to spend that much money. Milsig M17, Valken M17, they're the same marker. They all break down super easy, bolt out the back of the gun practically, you can clean everything. If you're on the fence, maybe get a TMC or a Stormer Elite specifically. If you want to try out MagFed, those are always great options. All of them have their kinks and their issues. Honestly, any of them you could buy and love and never get rid of, and that just be your primary marker. You might run into some hiccups like most of us did with a very specific thing on each marker that makes you upgrade to a different one. But in the end, it's all personal preference. I'm not going to get into sidearms in this. This is just primaries for those of you that want that information. So I think that's going to do it for this, guys. Let me know if you like this style of content. I'm not opposed to doing more of it. It was quite a bit of work to set all of this up to make this work, but we got there. Hopefully, I think it turned out pretty good. And if you have any questions about any of these markers specifically, let me know. I will do my best to answer them. If you want a more deep dive on each of these or any of these, also let me know. But I think that's going to do it for this one. So until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.
The power of the dark side.